Hello, welcome to my video of my action research visual poster presentation. I would just like to say first and foremost, I found it very informative participating in this assignment, as it allows teachers to expand a little bit further than the classroom and learn more about how they can improve their school climate as a whole through conducting research and developing a research problem. So let's get started. For this presentation, I'm going to share, I don't know why this is popping up here. Here we go. For this presentation, I'm going to start by sharing with you my problem statement. So, this is the statement of my research problem. Basically, this is developed as during my placements, I had noticed that when I would be outside for duty, a lot of students would sit in solemnly and do nothing with their recess time. Maybe because they felt excluded from things. Maybe they felt like they didn't want to play Foursquare like everybody else, or they just weren't that engaged in physical activity. So this is where the research problem came from, because it is imperative that students participate in physical activity, and they are allotted to a certain amount of time throughout the day, and it's important for students to take full advantage of their recess time. So that's where the recess problem developed. So in reading the slide, it's known that recess is an aspect of the school day that is imperative for students to participate in, as it promotes physical activity, interaction, and breaks outside the classroom. However, some students classify recess as being one of the most anxious and boring times of the day, where they sit alone for the entirety of 15 to 20 minutes 3 times daily. Instead of interacting with others and participating in physical activity, some students prefer to isolate themselves from their schoolmates and miss the opportunity to fulfill the true purpose of recess. In doing this, students fail to develop the kinds of social skills needed for cooperation and collaboration. So that came from an article by McNamara and Walker written in 2008. In addition, some teachers do not necessarily promote healthy behavior during recess time, meaning students do not get the opportunity to use that time wisely and practice what is intended, which is play. So that brings me to my research question, which is, how can I promote student interaction and physical activity to increase student engagement and healthy behavior during recess? So that's what I based my whole research problem on. Here are definitions that I wanted to highlight, and I received them all from dictionary.com. So recess is a temporary withdrawal from usual work or activity. Interaction is reciprocal action, effect, or influence. Play is to exercise or employ oneself in diversion, amusement, or recreation, or to do something in sport that is not to be taken seriously. Anxiety is distress or uneasiness of mind caused by fear of danger or misfortune. Alone is separate, apart, or isolated from others. And duty is the binding or obligatory force of something that is morally or legally right. It's a moral or legal obligation. So I decided to highlight these. Specifically, anxiety kind of seems a little out of the box, but I noticed that in my placement, a few students who had anxiety were less likely to participate in physical activity during recess, and those were the students who would isolate themselves the most. So I thought that was an important definition to include. So some of the literature I found, this one by McNamara and Walker in 2008. It's called "It is Just Too Fun to Explain," and it's a qualitative analysis of the recess project in 7 lower socioeconomic elementary schools. So this is actually conducted within our school boards in Niagara. McNamara is a prof at Brock University, so this hits very close to home. And basically, it just talks about, the article talks about the recess project, which is designed to get students active and participating in games during recess, at low socioeconomic schools in Ontario. The article discusses the positive outcomes they noticed regarding overall student behavior, such as students getting along with their enemies, inclusiveness, and improvement in the development of cooperative and social skills. So the second article by Ridgers et al. Variables associated with children's physical activity levels during recess. So this article I thought was super important because it talks about what variables affect the way students play during recess. So some of the things the article really outlined were gender, access to equipment, play area, and the outdoor temperature. So I'm going to use this article to determine the appropriate environment students need to fulfill their recess time in the most effective way possible. And then finally, the last article is titled Classroom Benefits of Recess. It talks about the benefits recess has on students once they enter the classroom. They use studies to explain how physical, social, and emotional benefits of recess better the classroom environment by increasing student activity, or creativity, scoring, and attention. So basically, in summarizing the first article about the recess project, it's directly related to the research question because it talks about student behavior during recess and how to find a solution for the negative behavior that they were noticing. So by facilitating organized games, they found positive feedback from student behavior and it improved the way they learned, interacted, and collaborated at school in general. For the second article, it relates to my research question as it outlines the conditions in which students are more likely to participate in physical activity. In understanding these factors, schools can implement strategies that support the variables that promote physical activity and ultimately give students the opportunity to fulfill their recess time. And then for the third and final article, it proves relative to my research question as it reiterates the importance of recess and how it improves academics. The study discussed in the article supports the importance of students participating in a fulfilling recess, ultimately justifying the need for the research question. Okay, so continuing away from the literature, now we're leading into my action plan. So what am I going to do to make this come to life? And here's what I came up with. My data sources, at first, I used scholarly articles, and then I realized that was veering off the track that I was supposed to be on, so I went this way instead. So the first data source that will be used to record observations regarding student performance during recess are anecdotal notes made by the teacher on duty. So basically, it's qualitative data as they're talking about observations, written observations, and during the month of May and June, the teacher on duty will record overall student behavior at recess without the use of recreational games and playground equipment. So whoever's on duty will write what they've noticed during the month of May as far as student behavior goes. And then that will continue in June, except in June, the students will be given equipment and there will be somebody facilitating games. So that way, the researchers, so me, I could compare how students acted in the month of May without those implementations, and then in June once those things have become implemented. So and I would be comparing the teacher observations. So they're using anecdotal notes to record their observations regarding students with the implementation of recreational games and equipment and without, and see if that makes a difference. For the next data source, it's a checklist that the students will fill out at the end of every week during the months of May and June. So during the month of May, when there isn't anything implemented to promote healthy behavior during recess, students will rate on a scale of 1 to 5 how active they were during recess, and they will rate how often they socialized and how they felt in the classroom on a scale of 1 to 5. And then they will do that for the month of June as well.